As I'm sure some of you may know, I mean, this is a phenomenal entrepreneur and a phenomenal woman. She built her company from the ground up while being homeless, and she is the founder and managing partner of Backstage Capital, which is a VC firm that is dedicated to minimizing funding disparities in tech for women, for people of color, for anybody in the LGBT community. And on a somewhat personal note, Arlan made history at Fast Company magazine, where I'm an editor, by being the first Black woman to grace our cover who wasn't an entertainer or athlete. And I remember, yes, please. Yeah, so, I mean, in that regard, I love my magazine, but it was about damn time for that, I must say.
I really appreciate that, too.
No.
I don't think I've been able to thank anyone in person for that, because that was really awesome.
No, it was fantastic. I mean, and so well deserved. It was an October issue. It's just such a fantastic story. And I'm really excited to dive into today's talk because we're going to be going over everything that Arlan is doing at Backstage Capital, from her portfolio of headliners to all the amazing work that she's doing with her Accelerator program and so much more. So once again, please join me in welcoming Arlan Hamilton.
Hey. Thanks. Can we, before you start, can we talk about the fact that you just interviewed Chili from TLC?
Oh, see, I wasn't about... Fun fact.
That's all I'm thinking about right now.
Real quick, I wasn't trying to brag. I just had to tell someone I was so excited. I led a sing-along to No Scrubs with Chili, which was a thing. Yeah, but anyway. But I'm happy to be here right now with Arlan. You know, I feel like for those who don't know your story, and it's like, what? Were you just playing that? Damn, girl. All right.
Play TLC songs for 40 minutes.
So for those who don't know, I would love to hear if you wouldn't mind just briefly sharing how Backstage Capital came to be, because it's such a remarkable story.
Sure.
And I feel like I can't get enough of hearing it because it is so inspirational. So.
Yeah, I would love to. I'd also like to know, who is just learning about Backstage for the first time in the audience? Oh, great, okay. So that tells me, yes.
We were worried about this in the back.
Well, I was saying, at South by, it's really cool because when you have the badge, you kind of go to something based on the topic rather than already knowing the story most of the time, so that's really cool. So I don't have a background in finance or, the background that I have is in working on creating my own companies and experiments, really, and never have made more than 20,000 or 22,000 in a year. I looked at the numbers, and just came from Texas, and I worked my way up in the music industry on the behind the scenes side of things. I was a production assistant, and then I became a production coordinator, and then a tour manager for different artists, and I was working on some pretty major tours as a production coordinator around 2011 and 12, and it was wonderful and it was a lot of fun, but it wasn't going to be something that was steady. You never have steady work doing that, and I just became really curious about Silicon Valley, whatever that meant, because I heard about it, and I think the first time, I may have seen Ellen talk about an investment on her show, and then I may have seen Ashton Kutcher with a sticker on his laptop, and those are the first kind of things I remember seeing that made me understand, what are these things? What is Airbnb? What is Warby Parker? What is that? And so I started kind of reaching out to different founders because I wanted to start my own company. I thought, this is really cool. This is an awesome opportunity, and I wanted to start my own company. And in talking to founders from Texas, that's when I learned. I would talk to all kinds of founders, no matter their background or who they were, and it just started becoming this pattern I'd see that got mostly white men were getting introductions to investors, and other people weren't. And I thought, that's really crazy, And I'm a Black gay woman, so that means what's going to be my end if we're not getting in? So I just decided it would make a lot of sense to have a fund that invested in the people who were being overlooked, but who were creating really awesome things. So with no money and no connections and no background, I set on this journey, and that started in probably 2012-ish, depending on how you look at it. Took about 3 years of knocking on doors and asking and still working with other founders to see if I could be helpful, and asking investors if I could invest. And actually, 4 years ago, I came to South by, and I didn't have a badge, and didn't have a place to live at all, like not in Austin, but anywhere, and kind of slept in a rental car and with my mom, who's here, to make it possible for me to be around South by so I could try to find investors. And so 4 years ago to today is really something. And then, or like to me, just like blows my mind. So after 3 years of this, I did get an investor. I got an angel investor named Susan Kimberlin. She gave me the first amount of money, a small amount of money, but it was enough to say, okay, if I can get one person to believe in me, I can get a lot of people. And I just, over the past 3.5 years, have been knocking on doors and slowly but surely put together about $4 million to invest in 100 companies led by women, people of color, and LGBT founders. And then another couple of million to fund the operational part of that, which leads all of our platform for these 100 companies, because you can imagine what a resource-intensive thing that is to run that. So yeah, so that's kind of where we are today. We just launched an accelerator, and we'll talk about that, I'm sure, but that's where we are. That brings us to the present.
See, and I find your story is just so remarkable in so many different ways, and I know that you have so much drive and focus and grit and hustle, and these things could have been applied to start any number of companies.
Right.
So why a VC firm? Yeah,
so I actually did, I think it was 2014, the summer. I wanted to start my own company. That's how this started. I wanted to start. I had published a print magazine in my 20s. I'm 38. In my 20s, published a print magazine. It didn't make any money, but it was awesome. It was an awesome magazine. I think he would have liked it a lot. And I have this, it was really great, and we had, people who loved it, but I was just not great at the business side of things. And I wanted, the startup world just really spoke to me and said, okay, I wasn't like this loser who didn't get their magazine to work. I was just someone who attempted something, and rarely do people execute. Like, rarely do they try. They think of it, they have the idea, but rarely do they actually try. So it just kind of made me feel better, and I felt like I had found my people when I discovered what this place was and what the state of mind was. And so I did want to start my own company, but then after a while, I would be out there. It was kind of like if you're an actor and you're going to all these auditions and you're seeing all these people who look like you who are not getting the role and not getting the part. You're like, maybe I should start like an agency, or maybe I should start something that helps people get in the front door, because it becomes bigger than just your thing. Right. And that's what happened in this case. It was just, I said I probably, after all of the training I gave myself, all of the hundreds of hours of training that I sort of figured out on my own, I probably would have been able to raise $2 or $3 million for a seed round for a company, and I'm pretty sure I would have been able to kind of used all of that, but I felt like that would have been short-sighted on my part, and I think I'm right, because I think that this is better. Right. So I think it turned out better for just my taste and for other people.
And like with many people starting a company, I mean, you're going to face rejection, you're going to face no's, but
yes,
with you being a woman and having the skin color you do, that's like tenfold. So
mocha.
Nice, lovely shade of mocha, that I might say. And I think that, I always admire entrepreneurs, because I do think that there's something special within them to withstand all that, to be resilient in that way. But even the most resilient person can get worn down. So for you, what was it when you kept hearing no, what was it in you that said, no, I think I'm on to something? Because you could have just been like, I'm just gonna go back to music, I'm gonna go do something else. Like, what exactly was that thing?
It was a few things, because it wasn't, like, I didn't have any great stability to go back to, so it wasn't, I think people may think that I made some big sacrifice for it. I didn't. I was just kind of driven, like there was this unwavering drive for this because of a couple of things. One is that the companies that I was talking about and I was describing to people, and more importantly, the people who I was describing, they were already there. They existed already. It wasn't like something I was hoping I would find. If I had a few $1 million, I'm hoping I can find some good people to put this into or some good deals to put this in. They were already there, and they were being incredibly overlooked and underestimated. And so to me, it was a matter of time. This was really important that this was looked at. And I could find people who looked like me. I could find them, but it seemed like they were in a situation where they were like part of an institution, and if they rocked the boat at all, then they would kind of lose what they had. And I understood from their point of view what that could be like. For me, I didn't feel that way. I felt like I don't have someone to answer to, so I can make some noise, and I can get some attention to these founders in a way and not worry about getting kicked out. You know what I mean? Like, I don't care if I get kicked out of Silicon Valley.
Right. What's the tea?
What are they going to do? Yeah, I don't care. So that was part of it. And so it was just an understanding of, we have to do this. And I may be wrong. Like, I don't know if I was right or wrong at the time, but I just know that that's what I was thinking. Like, there's not enough time for us to dilly-dally here. We can't just take this. This is serious business. This is happening now. People are being overlooked today. And it takes a while to get a company off the ground. So if we don't start this now, you know, in 5 years, and 3 years, and 10 years, where are we going to be? The other part of it was that that I knew that Backstage itself just had to exist. There was no question to me that something had to exist, and so the part that kept me going was like, it wasn't about me. It wasn't like I was trying to get my mixtape into the hands of the right person over and over again.
And you would have a fire mixtape, though.
Oh, my mixtape would be, yeah.
I think so.
I started on some titles a while back.
Oh,
That's a whole nother story.
Backstage.
Yeah.
I was gonna say.
Some song titles, like I Don't Work Here. Yes, I know this is a line for First Class. Thank you very much. Things like that. So it was just this. So that every time when things were, the reason I kind of think about that now is because it happened today. It happens every day, like almost every day, where something is sort of disappointing or difficult, and it's the same answer is, why am I not just like packing my bags and just saying, you know what? You know, I don't want to reenact anything, but I could stand up and say, I gave you 6 years.
I mean, the stage is
yeah.
yours. We're here for you.
You know, instead of not doing that, is because I'm like, wait a minute. A little bit about me, mostly about everybody else. So like I need to just hang on.
Right. And, you know, of course, with Backstage, you are being the champion for all these underrepresented voices, people that are not taken seriously or not even considered at all, really. And I think that obviously echoes so loudly with your own story, because, you know, you were and still are in many ways. I mean, it's getting incrementally better, but you're an outsider, you know? And so, and again, like you touched on it a little bit, but the fact that you really, like, hundreds of hours of watching videos and teaching yourself, and I just don't think that no college education at all, and you're still able to do this. So with the gift of hindsight now, I mean, what were some of those advantages of being an outsider? Because I think that there are some.
Yeah, I mean, the resilience I definitely think is there, and being able to withstand rejection after rejection after rejection comes from having been rejected and then rejected and rejected.
Right.
And, you know, so been an outsider most of my life. I always think about these different scenes that are going to be in the Lifetime movie. And I can't wait for the high school scene.
I mean, no shade to Lifetime, but shoot higher. Come on, we gotta get you the theatrical release.
Hey, I'm still pushing for Latifah, and I met her and I said, I want you to play me in a movie. And she's like, how old are you? I said, 38. She said, it can still work. It still work. I mean, so, but I say Lifetime because that would just be a dream. Wouldn't that be a dream, just to see the Lifetime movie?
Oh my God.
That would be fun. No, but I mean, it's just, I don't like to sort of glamorize hardship in anyone to say that they went through it and that's why they were able to do this other thing. So I try to be really careful in how I answer that question. But the advantage that any of us have where we're being underestimated is, can't be overstated. It's you don't see me coming. You don't believe. Like there's been so many times I've been standing somewhere and someone just doesn't think that I, know what they're talking about or, belong there. And then, a couple of minutes later, somebody will come out and say, "Oh, Miss Hamilton, your seat's ready." And it's like I'm in the section that they were like, wanting to be in, or I'm speaking there or something. Right. Yeah, and that happens all the time. Like I'll be on a plane or I'll be like at a conference or something, and I'll just be sitting and there'll be these buttoned-up guys, and they'll be talking about ROI and all this like really boring VC talk, and I'll just turn around to them and I'll ask them like, "So who are some of your LPs?" Ooh. "Oh yeah, you don't. Oh, you don't. Okay, yeah, and that'll throw them off. That I just think that if you don't believe I can do something, that's your bad, first of all. Right? Yeah. Right. but fine, right. Like all of us underestimated people. Like we're here to prove you wrong. That's the point.
Right. And I obviously want to get into the work you're doing at Backstage Capital because it's amazing. And you, like you mentioned before, I mean, you've invested more than $4 million in 100 companies. You started a 36. Figures. I love it.
There's all sorts of things going. Yeah. So there's about 5.
And you started a $36 million fund to support Black female founders, aptly titled "It's About Time." That is about damn time fund. Yeah. I can't forget that damn. And you launched an accelerator programs across Los Angeles and Philly, London, and Detroit. Yeah. And I want to talk to you about the consideration that you take when you are scaling what you do at Backstage Capital, because this is a lot in a relatively short amount of time.
Yeah.
Backstage Capital has not been around for that long, so just the fact that you've been branching out into all these different avenues.
Sure. I mean, I think we can get into that a little bit too, because I don't often get to talk about that.
Yeah.
People just see, an announcement, they see a headline, they're like, "What? How are you doing? Oh, you're selling cars now? Okay, great." Right. Okay, like what do you? There's so much going on, but to be honest. First, there's a couple things that come to mind. One is that we do a few things, right? But we honestly try to do just a few things really well. Yeah. So the things that are on the cutting room floor at Backstage far outnumber the things that we do. Yeah. It's just that our team executes at a level that I've never experienced anywhere. Seen anywhere. They do it for less, they do it with less, and they do it with more life and passion than I've seen. It's really that. It comes down to that. And so there is a lot going on, but if you look at it kind of in a row, it all is, the way I like to describe it is like it's a few birds all pointing in the same direction, right. Just going in the same direction. And so you have Backstage. I decided I was going to invest in 100 companies by 2020. This was in 2014 or 15. I said that out loud, and this was when I had no money and nobody had heard of me, and it was like, and so people just like, it's like that thing of like, I saw it, and sometimes that happens. It's already existing in my head. It exists already, so it's an inevitable thing. Yeah. And I said, I'm going to invest in 100 companies by 2020. It wasn't a question or a hope. I'm going to.
It was a fact.
It was a fact. Yeah. Hashtag a fact. and it wasn't like, I wasn't like, oh, that's going to be cool, or that's going to be like, that's a big number and look at me. It was, people are out here saying that we don't exist and that we can't make good companies. I'm going to see so many companies that 2 or 3%, the high standard that we have, will make it in. And then, of course, there'll be some that we can't invest in. But that was really what it was about. It was like looking at the landscape, looking at what I was seeing, hearing people say, you can't talk about diversity. You can't talk about gender or orientation or race. You can't talk about that in Silicon Valley. And then seeing what was really happening in the real world, which was people were just being overlooked and ignored. And how insulting is that when you have, so, you know, there was a professor that I knew who was a black woman who taught the kids at Stanford, and she couldn't get an audience with an investor, but the kids at Stanford could. She taught them. Wow. And that's, things like that were happening. I'm like, okay, no. So we're not going to go in and we're not going to tap on the door. We're not going to say, can we come in? We're going to bust that door down, and we're going to do it with 100 companies by 2020.
That Nike
because it's
check mark on that door, just bam.
That's what it was. So that was, I felt there needs to be this adrenaline shot to the heart of Silicon Valley, and that's what that was. And so we reached that goal by May of 2018, and when we looked at that, we responsibly looked at that about 6 months prior. And, you know, some of it's been documented on Gimlet, some of it is like, we looked at that and we're like, we're gonna reach 100 companies 2 years before we thought we would. Right. And it took, by the way, it took all of our might to raise that money. There was never us sitting around saying, oh, what should we invest in now, Lovey? It's like every single step and every single investment was so important. And the things we missed out on because we couldn't raise fast enough was so important. And so I get a little offended when people are like, oh, you just spray and pray, or you just did. Boy, I was doing a lot of praying, but there wasn't a lot of spray, you know?
Right.
So it was that. So then we saw about 6 months before we reached the 100, we said, okay, what we can do right now, we have this option. And I was with Christy, who's my investment partner and co-founder. We said, we can close up shop right now, and we would have invested in the 100 companies, and we would have the headlines, and that we would have done the job of choosing, and in a few years, some of these are going to go on to do well, and we're going to make our carry, which is the profit you make at a fund. And the two of us are going to do well. And we can have no stress, and we can kind of coast. We can get paid to speak. I mean, we had this conversation. We can get paid to speak, we can write a book, we can go do this thing, and for 2 or 3, 4 years, we're good. And we looked at each other and said, but we don't want to do that, do we? What we want to do is to work with those companies every day of our lives and hope that we can be some sort of impact to them and to our portfolio so that it's not a transaction. And the way we do that is we put a different type of infrastructure there. It's very difficult to raise, but what if we started Backstage Studio and we got an investment for that, and that helped us build things, and that helped us hire people to help us with this portfolio of 100 people. And that's when we started Studio. So again, that's one of the things, one of the pillars that we have that some people say, wait a minute, you have a fund and you have a studio and you have an accelerator? Yes, we do, because we thought about it and that's what we wanted to do, right? I mean,
stop asking about your business.
Richard Branson has 300 companies under his thing. He doesn't run them all. Right. You know, it's not just me running everything. We have a team. So we started that. We got a $500,000 impact investment from Holly Laveau, who is just the coolest person I know, because she not only because she put the money down, but because she's just fearless. Mm-hmm. She's fearless and she knows what she wants, and we like connecting with people like that. And I can't wait to 10x that for her. But that's another story. So she put that down. We raised more for some amazing investors, and we were able to, in 2018, have this build like crazy and ship like crazy. And so what we've built at Backstage, we don't boast about it, so you don't know much about it, but what we've built is the infrastructure that a fund that has $500 million under management has. And I know this for a fact because I talk to those funds every week, and they're astounded by what we have. So we did that with maybe $3 million worth of money that was operational. Right. We built revenue, we got investment money, and so we were able to back our portfolio, which we'll be able to continue to do. Today, Monday, we officially launched Backstage Accelerator. Because when you look at this 100 companies and you say, okay, now it was that same conversation again. Mm-hmm. It's like, okay, we reached 100. We're going to support them. Do we just stop investing in people? We could. I mean, we could drop the mic at 100, I think, right, and be okay.
I mean, that's pretty impressive. That's
Yeah,
more
I
than
mean, I
most.
would be fine with that, but I would be proud of that,
Yeah.
but I wouldn't be fine with it, I should say.
Right.
And the thing was, we have to kind of stay true to ourselves. And we see this deal flow every day. All of the companies that come to you, that's the deal flow. We see the caliber. It's only getting better. People are only being more inspired to create things. And most importantly, we want to be around for a few years to meet them at different stages of their career and of their journey. And in order to do that, you raise these bigger funds and you keep going. And the Accelerator for us is just a really wonderful way to put everything that we've done for our first 100 companies into structure, into curriculum, into a program. And so we've launched that across 4 cities, officially starting in Detroit today.
That's amazing. Yes. And I'm glad you brought that up because I think I'm curious to know, like, what consideration do you take into where you launch the Accelerator? Yeah.
So again, this was a team effort. So there was a lot of team dynamics to it. I decided on the first. I did decide on the first 3 cities, and then we had a crowd vote for the 4th city, which was really cool. But the first 3 cities, I'm based in Los Angeles, and we really love LA, and we believe that they're a great example of a city that has a lot of diversity in their tech ranks, and they're doing really well. They're one of the fastest growing tech hubs in the country. And so we wanted to kind of make an example of them, and also, it's where a lot of people that work at Backstage work, and it just made a lot of sense for us to be there, and we're excited to be there. And then Philadelphia, we were there. We have a lot of ties to Philadelphia, and we saw that they have some awesome funds, like big funds there, like First Round and others, and Ben Franklin and all that, and that there were a couple of accelerators there already, and we just felt like there was a place for us there. There was a real place for us. We knew that there were companies there that we wanted to be part of. They have some really amazing companies there. And then London, a couple of reasons. I mean, it was just kind of the same as Philadelphia. We saw the deal flow. We saw the city's help, like the city's involvement in their ecosystem and how they could be helpful to us. We saw the investors, the downstream investors. Things that people were working on were really interesting and really in line with what we were into. And then I met several African founders in London, and I said this would be like a really, really great way for us to learn more about the market, like learn more there. And because I only want to be somewhere where I feel like we kind of add to it and are being smart about it. And so there was a few things that went there. Then we said, there are about 10 other cities that could be this 4th city, and we don't necessarily need to make that decision. Let's see what people want, where people want us. Right. So we did a crowd kind of sourced contest, and Detroit won both the popular vote and our internal kind of vote of do they check off these different marks, and so we're really excited. And then now they're the first to launch.
That's awesome. Right?
Yeah. Yeah. That's right. That's right. It's Detroit.
I mean, because you mentioned that there's a lot that's on the cutting room floor, but even with everything that you have going on now, what would you say to someone who's thinking this is too much too soon? Like,
they say it all the time.
Okay.
They say it's too much too soon all the time. They say it to me. They say it behind my back. They could say it to me though. I'm right here. A little bitter today. It's been a morning. I would say a few things. I mean, it depends on who it is. I always check the source. Mm-hmm. If the source is sitting on the sidelines and have their feet, up on their little Chase lounge, mm-hmm. I would say, "Who are you again? I don't know. Who are you? Like, why are you telling me this?" If there's someone who's honestly just concerned, and they've seen it before, they've seen something happen, or it's happened to them, and it's not been a good outcome, I'll listen to that, and I understand where they're coming from and their concern, and I really appreciate people who are genuinely concerned. They know that it's not just us, it's not just about me, It's not even about Backstage. It's about like how we all look. I get that. We're not allowed to fail right now, and I get that. But to me, I think they are misinterpreting what failure is. I think we're successful already. The fact that we exist is success. The fact that we've done what we've done is success. And there's a little bit of people kind of putting their own limitations on us based on what they have been able to do or not do. You have to look at us a little bit differently. We're not you. Yeah. We're not them. Let us win or fail on our own. That's the important part. I'd also say that they're not privy to the internal stuff that happens and the decisions that happen every day. They don't know that unless they spend time with us and know every decision and look at every, there's so much thought that goes into what we do. Yeah. It's incredible. I mean, we could open that up. One day we will. We'll open up the engine and let you see the parts to it. Right. And unless you're wanting to help, don't get in our way. You know, don't slow us down.
I was gonna start singing "Move," but that's
yeah.
not.
I
was trying to keep it professional here. We're professional.
Who is professional in here? I don't hear.
But I mean, you've kind of mentioned them a little bit before, and I think it's so important to talk about a little bit as your team.
Yeah.
Because you can absolutely have a vision for something, and this is your vision, but you have a team to help you execute that. So when you were building Backstage Capital, like what considerations were you taking into who you wanted on your team?
So we did it. It was kind of like the portfolio companies, where each person on our team. It does take so much for us to be able to afford each thing that like it's everybody on our team, like almost everybody on our team went through weeks or months of just like helping us out with something, and then we were able to hire them. So there's this like passion they have for Backstage that you can see prior to just being like a transactional thing. And then, you know, I'll be very honest, and I do want to say this because I think this is important too for anybody who either is going through this themselves or who looks at Backstage and thinks that it's all good or, you know, we're just kicking major butt. I think we are. But I recently had to do layoffs for the first time.
Oh, really?
And it's something that I'll talk about in detail at some point soon. But I just want people to understand, like, every bit of this, every bit of the highs, the lows, every bit of it is just so well thought through, and it impacts us, and it's something that we care deeply about. But bringing people on, it's really about, first of all, because it takes so much to get someone on, right? They have to be, for the most part, we hope that they're like feeling an immediate need, especially earlier last year. It's like we have to be really going on fumes in that department for us to say, okay, we have to have someone there. So there's someone who's like hit the ground running type of person, you know, just can do so much with so little, just like our founders. Right. And there's someone who makes me think, like everybody on our team is someone that I have or would sit down with and just talk about all types of things and just kind of be in awe of them and what they know and what their lived experience is. That's really important because you can't have, like we have a lot of camaraderie at Backstage. I mean, it's almost sickening, isn't it, Brittany? It's almost sickening, right? It's a lot, but at the same time, people are, most of the time people feel like they can challenge, and they can challenge me and they can challenge each other, and we just try to provide a safe space for that. But we don't want just everyone to be like these drones of like, okay, yep, this is our party line and this is what we say. Like, right. I'll look online and I'll see somebody tweeting something like, oh, okay, that's an opinion that I don't have. Fantastic, but it's like, that's okay because that's what we. One thing we haven't had at Backstage that I actually kind of dig, but I don't think it'd be very enjoyable for them, is like a really hardcore Trump like person.
Whoa.
I would kind of dig it.
Defend your thesis. What?
Because it's just I would want a different opinion. I want to get to know them and why and all of that. I mean, I wouldn't want them I wouldn't give them the keys to anything. Or the password.
Just keep them in a room there, like, so just explain your thoughts on this sheet of paper and slide it under the door when you're done.
But honestly, that's just an extreme version of what, but I just really, I really like the fact that there's people from all types of backgrounds. We try to practice what we preach with the diversity thing, right? If you go to backstagecapital.com/crew, CREW, you'll see the crew, and you'll notice immediately that it is a very diverse by profile group. But click on people's pictures to see their backgrounds and how varied education is, and how varied life experience is. And now we learn more and more as people on the team write more and do more podcasts and do more speaking, that the philosophical differences are really interesting too.
Definitely. And speaking of building out diversity, diverse teams and whatnot, but your portfolio as well. If anyone's had a chance to scroll through companies that Backstage Capital is investing in, it's a really good mix. So I would love to get a sense of the headliners, as you call them.
We call them headliners.
And why you call them headliners?
Well, because we're Backstage. They're the headliners. I know it. I know you see my face a little bit, but yeah, we try to do a little bit. The crew, we do a little something. We have the mixtape as our newsletter and all sorts of cute stuff.
Love that.
But yeah, we probably have 75 or 80%, I don't know the exact number, but that are on the website. So if you go to backstagecapital.com/portfolio or /headliners, you can check them out. But it's not all of them. There's about 15 or 20, I'd say about 20 that are not listed. And we are agnostic in our industry, and we're a generalist fund. So that means that we can look at almost anything. And then we are all over the country. And, I just saw 7 portfolio companies, 7 headliners here yesterday at South by. Oh, wow. And last year we brought something like half of them to South by. There's a really cool picture of that. So, I think about SheerShare is a great example. SheerShare, that's
the empty chair.
Yeah, it's an app. So if you are a stylist or a barbershop and you have an empty chair, and you own the place, right? And you have an empty chair, and then on the other side of that is a stylist who maybe they just got out of school, or maybe they are professional, have been out there for a while, but they don't necessarily want to rent space for month by month, get on a lease, and have to have that expense and that worry constantly, when they could work 2 or 3 days a week, have their clients come to this place, or if they're travel, they go somewhere else. So you can kind of match, and you can rent by the day this chair. And so it helps the people who already own the space to get a little extra money to pay their mortgage, and it helps the people who need the space. And it's just a really smart, I forgot the number of cities they're in, but it's in the hundreds. And it's a black couple out of Dallas, and Courtney and Ty, and they're here at South by. So if check out SheerShare online and look them up. So that's just one of them. Then we have there's PopCom, which is physical. What do you call them? Vending machines, thank you. It's physical vending machines using AI to help the vendor know who their customer is and how their customer is even feeling when they're purchasing.
Right.
So, and they're beautifully constructed vending machines, and they're just trying to take vending into the future. And that's PopCom, and that's Dawn Dixon, and she's here as well. There's just across the board. I mean, we have FinTech. Sheena Allen, I know she's here at South by working on FinTech. And she's from Mississippi. We have people from all over the country working on so many different things. We have people sending things into space. We have people catching things from space, I'm sure. Drones and enterprise SaaS and just everything you can think of. And then on top of that, in the most cases, like we're not talking, like I want to make sure everybody understands, we're not talking about like because they're underrepresented, it means like they're down and out.
Yeah.
Like don't mistake it for that. We're talking about highly educated people in some cases, people who have just done more with less. So as impressive as what they're doing already is, pile on top of that the way that they must have hacked their way to get there and to be able to do it and produce it. And that is where, that's our sweet spot. That is what's going to help Backstage win, because we're betting on those people who have found a way to hack their way to where they are.
Right. And, not to add more to your plate, but...
Sure.
No, because in just reading your story and reading about Backstage Capital, it's... You're doing so much for people who are, fresh or starting out in the companies, and these are startups and people who are just growing their business. But knowing your background, I know that there's so much you can do even earlier. I'm talking about literacy in business for teenagers, even kids. Like, how much thought have you given that in terms of helping people getting that bug started early?
I'll say this, like, I think that for the most part, like, that's not my lane, and I'll tell you what part is my lane, I think. But the reason I don't think that's my lane is because so many people are doing such a great job of that. I think about Kimberly Bryant at Black Girls Code. Like, she's one of my heroes.
Yeah.
I saw her speak before I started the fund, and I was like, I gotta know her. And now she talks to me every once in a while. I like it. Very cool. But she's doing, like, check out Black Girls Code. There's all kinds of, Carly Kloss, actually, I started talking to her recently, and she has an amazing program for young girls to start coding, and she coded her own. She's like a hacker, that girl. I don't know. She's a true hacker. I don't know if you know Carly Kloss, but look her up. She's Tay-Tay's best friend.
Oh, you know Tay-Tay?
Hey, Tay-Tay. Yeah. I'm going to call her that when I meet her one day. Hey, Tay-Tay.
Oh, she would love that. Not too much, but that's fine.
We're good. We're going to have a good talk. And I just think that there's so many people who are working on it, and I'll do everything I can to be helpful that early. Like, I'll come in and mentor, and I'll do things like that. But I think that as far as the infrastructure of that, those are things that we should not necessarily attempt as Backstage anytime soon, because they're just being done so well and executed so well. And people have vision for that for the next 20, 30 years. And there are other places that what we do is we try to, like, sponsor things. We try to, when we can, right? We try to speak at almost everybody at Backstage speaks somewhere sometime and provides that mentorship. We have office hours for new founders to talk. But the way that I do think that I can probably be helpful is that I get the opportunity these days, and it's definitely because of Fast Company in many, many ways. But I get the opportunity sometimes to be in rooms, really, really interesting rooms with people who have direct access to media. And whether that's just like straightforward, like we get a ton of press, of course, but like media content creation, I get to be in those rooms. And I've been pitched like 5 or 6 reality shows already. Really? And I've turned them all down, because they didn't make sense for what we're doing. But what I am telling people and putting out there is like, okay, and I had this conversation with a really great director. I don't know if she would want to talk about it, so I'm not going to put it out there like that, but we had a great conversation about how do we take the companies that are in our portfolio, the examples of these wonderful people who are in our portfolio, put them on either television or the big screen, their lives and their stories, to inspire others. Right. And how do we produce that? And so that is what I think the next few years of my life are going to be. Okay.
I mean,
thank you.
I'll clap to that. Yeah.
That's what I think the next few years of my life. I think that all of the work we've done so far has set the stage. No pun, but has set the stage for. Okay, where do you go next? Well, part of it it's about representation, isn't it? So the reason that all of the lovely white gentlemen in this audience, and I appreciate you for being here, the reason that they kind of have certain confidence that I had to manufacture in myself, is because Superman exists. Is because Batman exists. Right. And even somehow they turned Aquaman into somebody cool. They somehow made that happen. Yes. And so I want to put I want to put our images on screen and literature and books and comic books and every way you can imagine. I want to be a catalyst for that. I'm not going to act like I'm some sort of, Hollywood producer, but I can add my voice to a couple of projects that do that.
Nice. And I definitely want to leave time for questions. I think we're going to dive into them.
Yeah, looks like there's some here.
Let's see. How about let's go to the top one.
I don't mind that one.
You want to do it? All right. So this one's
Okay. No, this top
remix.
one?
That's fine. What was this one?
The one that was at the top, I'd like to answer that question, but I don't remember.
Can we call that one back?
It was
Yes.
lowest point.
Yeah. What was your lowest point in building Backstage, and how did you break through it?
Okay. So I have a lot of low points. The reason I had other choices, right? But the reason I wanted that is because I just really, any chance I get, I want to make sure people know that it's not all good, and it's mostly not, I promise you, it's not for a pity party for me. It's because I meet so many people who are like, I'm going through some stuff and I'm embarrassed and I didn't get this right, and I'm like, we're all going through it. Your faves are going through it right now, I promise you. So some of the lowest points have been where at the beginning, where just nobody was nobody was taking me seriously at all, and I just never knew how I was going to get out of a situation. And at the very beginning, the situation was being like on food stamps and homeless, and not knowing where I was going to sleep that night, and trying to build this fund. So those are really low points. Since starting the fund, it's been about I can have in the same day or in the same hour, I can have someone tell me online or in person, I have a company that pays my bills now. I started a company that pays my bills. It's the reason I'm able to have rent and eat and send my child on field trips, is because of this company I built, and I built it after reading about you in something last year. Wow. I can have that happen to me all the time, and then a half hour later, I can get a phone call from an investor who, committed $1 million and said, oh, I'm not going to do that. I'm just not going to do that. My bad. I'm not going to do it. So those, it's being taken so high, and that's why I try not to listen to either way. Yeah. I get a lot of accolades, but I try to say, okay, I'm right here. And I have my mom, she's not here right now, but I have her to keep me kind of grounded, as mothers do. But I can be there, tick, 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 and then boom. And I think those happen more often than people probably realize.
Yeah, nice. So how would you describe the process of establishing credibility/command, the attention of gatekeepers when the odds are stacked against you?
I don't know if I understand the question. This process of establishing
credibility
of gatekeepers.
Yeah. So the people who are holding, I guess the purse to this money that you want, how did you get them to take you seriously, I think is.
Oh, I see what it's saying. Yeah. Okay, it's the opposite of what I'm thinking. I think some of it was just by staying around. Mm-hmm. And because a lot of people feel like, oh, okay, people have jumped on a fad, or people have a chip on their shoulder, or people are this, or how they can be. There's always something. But I found that a few of our investors, our key investors, came in after just seeing me going, just keeping at it for years, and saying, man, you're going to either do this, or you're going to, I don't want to say die trying, but is there?
Well, that ain't would.
Yeah. You're going to either do this or whatever, because you're I like that kind of, I think people react to that. And I think now there's always these pockets of time where you have to say it. And then there's these wonderful pockets of time where it's just being shown. Yeah. And that's what's happening right now. Our portfolio is showing out. Yeah. They raised $50 million plus last year. They're booking deals. They're gaining customers. They're hitting their Series A. I get once every 2 or 3 weeks, I'll get an email that says, go collect your Series A. Your note has converted. They're doing it, and that's happening all around the ecosystem. It's not just our portfolio. And when that happens in our ecosystem, when Delane raises, however, $30 million for Play Versus, when Jewel Burks stunts and does anything basically, right. That's good for us. Yeah. All boats rise. So I think it's about not necessarily trying to convince gatekeepers. It's about like, you'll see. If you can believe us or not, but you'll see eventually either way.
What question are you feeling?
Oh,
I like that second one.
oh yeah, I didn't read that one.
I'm a content creator trying to show folks what inclusive entrepreneurship really looks like. How should those stories be told? What stories do you want to see?
I mean, it depends on your voice. Like, I would just say, like, be really true to your voice, first of all, please, Julie. Be true to your voice. Give us something that we don't know we want to see. And don't be afraid, like, look at people like Issa Rae and Ryan Coogler and all sorts of people who didn't stray from their own style. Jordan Peele, like, who didn't stray from their own style, and they still win. And on top of that, they get the attention of people because they're so, like, the reason people are so interested in Backstage, our fund, is because there are only a few of us out here, and so when something happens, people kind of come to it, you know? And so that's the same with content. Like the content that you create now, you don't have to try to fit a mold because people already have all that. They've already seen us look a certain way. So have your own style, and I just want to see. I personally dig like more realistic stuff than like sci-fi fantasy stuff, but that's just because they asked. And then also I like stuff that makes me laugh. Like I like really smart humor, and that'll always get my attention.
Cool. And
if you can turn it into a spin-off of General Hospital, I will put my personal money behind it. Let's see.
What do you, number 3 or number 1?
Is there a superhero or fictional character that inspires you?
I like that one.
I like that one too. I got to think about that for a second. Has Whoopi Goldberg ever played anything that's like a super? You know what?
Medium and Ghost, kind of.
That's right.
Kind of like you and
She played. Has anybody seen this movie? What is it called? What's the one where she dressed up as a white man on Wall Street?
Oh my God.
Anybody? What's it called? Ghost. Yeah. Wow.
It is late in the day. God help us.
Get her a Netflix special.
Black cards revoked for both of us. That is tragic.
It's this movie called something. It has Diane West in it.
Oh yeah, Diane West. Yeah.
Yeah. It's fantastic. It's from the 90s, and I was actually really inspired by that, even though I'm not putting my neck out here. I was really inspired by that, even though I can't think of the name. But Whoopi, there's a picture of me meeting Whoopi a few years ago, and I looked like somebody punched me in the face, stole my bike, and then came back and punched me again. Because I was so excited to meet this woman. I was just... The Associate. Thank you.
There you go. That was a group effort.
Appreciate
Thank you for Googled that.
Called The Associate. Look it up. It's really cool. And actually, it should be like required watching for all of us today because it's really interesting. Let's see. Fictional character. I know it's probably silly that I probably have one that I talk about all the time that it's not coming to mind right now. General Hospital, Carly Corinthos. You know what I'm talking about? Yes. Yes. Okay. Carly is fierce, fearless, loyal, really funny, and she can't catch a break. She can't watch General Hospital for a week. That's just the end of the sentence for some of y'all, but watch General Hospital for a week and watch Carly's character. No matter what happens, no matter what's going on, she can't catch a break. Right now, she's and I haven't seen the Mondays, so don't tell me what happened. But right now, she's at the bottom of a ravine, and she's pregnant.
Jesus.
And Ryan Collins has tossed himself overboard with Ava, and everybody thinks that it's Kevin, but it's really his twin brother who came back from the dead.
You are really up here giving a recap of your stories.
Yes. It's serious, man. It's really good right now. It's really good. Check it out, General Hospital on ABC.
Okay, you know what? I revoke your question-picking abilities in this one.
Hey, we're going to have a problem if you have a problem with General Hospital. Have you watched it? Have you watched it?
No.
Well, then...
Because I have
That's what's going to happen next when we go back here.
Okay.
That's okay. It's okay. he's going to get it.
Fine.
You're going to write a whole piece about it.
Okay.
Okay.
What are you thinking? I think, can you tell the story about the first person who invested in you? How did you feel when she said yes? Why did you think she invested versus others?
I can answer that question. Why do I think she said yes versus others who said no? And I also say that there's a fuller version of this. If you go to Gimlet Podcast, the Startup Podcast, they did 6 episodes where they did the whole story, and it's actually a narrated thing. It's not like a straightforward podcast, so it's pretty cool. The first couple of episodes talk about it. So her name is Susan Kimberlin. I'll talk about her anytime anybody asks, because I just adore her, and she's so awesome. And like I said, she didn't put in like tons and tons of money, but it was just that, when you have, it's like Lady Gaga says. Oh. All you need is one person to believe in you. And that's what it was. That's what it was. It was like, wow, okay, so I knew her for a few months. I met her out in Silicon Valley. She had worked at PayPal and at Salesforce as a product manager. And she was an angel investor. She, wasn't like crazy rich or anything, but she had built something for herself, and her family had. And we talked a lot, and what I would do is like teach her a little bit about venture capital and about investing, and like help her with her other investments and like diligence them just a little bit and teach her a few things. And I asked her early on, and at first she actually said yes much earlier than we actually had the transaction. She said yes in May 2015, and I was like, okay, cool. Amazing, I've been working on this for 3 years, let's go. And I was like, okay, so here, I emailed her the wire information. I was like, here we go. And I did have a lawyer who was working for free for me, and so he was about to send over the docs and everything. And I sent the wire information, and she called me, and she's like, I can't do this, I can't do it. And I said, why, Susan? And she said, this is your mother's personal bank account? Oh. What is this? So I was a mess, okay? Because I had been homeless, y'all, so I didn't have like a bank account, and I was just like, I know my mom, she can take it out and we can put it in a real account, we can start a business account, but we have to start somewhere. Right. It was a whole thing. I wasn't thinking right, because I was thinking about other stuff and everything else we were doing. And so she's like, yeah, I'm gonna pass. So then we spent 3 months just talking, and it wasn't that pressure of, will you invest? Because I knew she wasn't. It was just like, I'll tell you about how I'm doing, you tell me about what you're working on. And then a few weeks later, she brought it back up again, and I was like, I definitely haven't had any investors, and I would definitely like to try again. And the day that you said no to me, I got a bank account. So I'm ready to go. So it was September 15th, it was September 14th, 2015 that she said yes, and September 15th that she wired. And it felt amazing, and it felt right. I felt I wasn't partying or like jumping up and down. I was stoked, but I had been preparing for almost 4 years for this moment. And so I was like, it's on, let's go. And I got a plane ticket to LA, where I had been sort of based for earlier in my life. And I got a co-working spot, and we were on, it was on.
I think we have time for one more question.
One quick one, yeah.
You choose.
Are you investing in new companies? If so, who do you speak to? If not, when will you be? So we just have 30 seconds left, so I'll just say we invested in 100 plus, right? And then we invested, now we have a new cohort of Accelerator companies, 25 new companies that we just announced on Friday through Fast Company. So I would encourage you to look at those companies. That took 6 months of diligence and 1,900 applications to get to that. And Brittany here is part of the big part of the reason that we were able to do that. Please raise your hand, Brittany. She was the head of that's And so the answer, that's part of the answer. The answer to your question is that we will have applications for another Accelerator cohort, most likely in a few months. Cannot tell you when. We're very focused on our current Accelerator. We want this one to do well in order to have another one. Nothing is a given. And when it comes to other investments, we do very few because we are still raising ourselves. Yeah.
Nice. Well, Arlan.
Okay.
Thank you so much for this.
Everybody.
Thank you all for being here. I really appreciate it.